Hey, yes, next. Welcome back. Now, I apologize in advance to the person who suggested it. I can't find the comment to correctly give you the spotlight. But oh man, you were right. This subreddit is absolutely up our alley. Let's see the most recent chaos people are sharing here. Clapped back at a bully in kindergarten. I can't actually remember what grade, but I was young. I don't remember doing this either, as I have memory recall issues. But it's a story that my parents have told me since it happened. For context, I'm adopted. I don't know how it started, but a boy in my class was upset with me and something like, "Well, you're adopted, which means your parents don't love you," or some BS like that. I came right back with a, "Yeah, well, my parents chose me. Yours are stuck with you," then punched the kid. My dad picked me up as I was sent home and took me for ice cream. I mean, geez, following up with a second attack, just brutal. Like, "Huzzah, I've disarmed you in combat, sir. Your sword is on the ground and here's a shotgun to the face." Boy in class wanted a fight, so I gave him one. When I was 11, there was a boy in my class that I know now had ADHD, but at the time, he was just an energetic bully. He used to always tease me about my height and weight. I'm a female and hit puberty young, so I gained weight in certain areas, unlike everyone else. I was also 5'6" and towered over most pupils. This kid used to always make fun of my weight, and one day I snapped. He was being a jerk to the teacher and called him a little bitch after a test, then proceeded to throw chairs around the classroom. One hit me in the head. I have never felt anger like I did in that moment. He said my head was so fat I probably didn't even feel it. Fam, I picked up that chair and threw the thing straight back at him using every molecule of force I had to injure my prey. And boy, did my prey suffer. I was second in my town for shot put because I had an arm on me, and this boy felt it that day. The chair scorned him in the head, and he was out cold. The teacher was present that whole time, and for a split second, I was like, "Oh, Schmidt, I should be running." But the teacher looked at me and laughed. "He'll be fine," was all that was uttered, and we put the chairs back and continued our lesson. Boy woke up like 2 minutes later and sat in his seat. Yeah, the one I hit him with, and stayed quiet the rest of the lesson. A week later, he started acting up to another student, and I told him if he didn't shut up, I'd throw another chair. This kid apologized, like literally apologized, and we actually became good friends. Now, I know this sounds a bit fake, at least for those who have only left school just over a decade ago, but it's clarified that the OP went to school in the 80s. So with that in mind, it makes a lot of sense that this child was just left to rot in their unconsciousness. Concussion, that just means they're asleep. It's fine. It means he's quiet, and that's what matters. Like, yeah, you got people, "Oh, so he has irreversible brain damage for being out for more than a couple of seconds with a head injury, right? And you, the teacher, and all the school got sued into oblivion at least? Or is this entirely unrealistic?" I don't know, I could see this happening in the late 1900s. And add to the other obscenity that she's the second in the whole town in shot put at 11? Well, yeah, in my age group, and this is not America. Our town was lucky to be 200 people. No, impossible. Only America exists. But yeah, to nip this in the bud, someone's laid it out beautifully here. There was little to no understanding among everyday people that cumulative head trauma and concussions were as damaging as they are until probably the early 2000s. It's been a huge reversal. In the 80s or 90s, if someone was unconscious for a minute or two, the common reaction was, "Haha, you got your bell rung." Maybe they'd be told to monitor themselves for 24 hours. Now, I tell that person to go to the ER. Hell, I'm a 94 boy. Even I can remember times when I was in grade 2, grade 7 even, I think it was. There were sports or events where people got knocked out, and yeah, they were just left to rest for a bit. There genuinely wasn't like emergency, ER levels of panic going on. Now that said, I am in Australia, completely disconnected from the rest of the world, so it makes sense that we'd be the last to learn about this sort of thing. How does it feel to get a taste of your own medicine? I, 16, used to be a chubby kid. When I was in kindergarten, there was this one kid who was really disruptive. We'll call him Sam for anonymity reasons. He would run around the classroom, didn't listen to the teacher, and was just loud and annoying in general. No one liked him. He used to bully me a lot. I never said anything because I just wasn't that type of kid. Well, one day, Sam called me fat to my face. Something snapped in me that day. I looked him dead in the eyes and said, "You're so skinny, you're practically a twig. I can snap you in half if I want to." He never dared to call me fat after that again. I went home that day and told my dad and grandpa what happened. They were really proud of me. Still one of the best moments of my life to this day. Honestly, yeah, I'm on your parents' side. We can try to apply equal and fair discipline and dialogue to reprimand this behavior in a healthy, safe space. But sometimes people like this just need to get a little dose of equal reality. Remind them that they are just as capable to being damaged and broken as they think everyone else is. Like, hey buddy, you trying to break my spirit? Cool, I'll try and break your spine. Let's see how that turns out. Made my mum cry because she believed my crazy grandma. So, in short, for some context, I was raised in a cult of the godly flavor, and my mom was a bit more lax at some things, but not by a lot. For some context, things like Sailor Moon and Pokemon weren't allowed because they didn't say their abilities came from God. And there's only one other that could grant such things, and that's Satan. But Disney was fine. Now, on to the main event. I was about 6 to 7 years old and obsessed with unicorns. Posters, books, clothes, glow-in-the-dark stars, and a fantasy-type set that showed unicorns, magical castles, and so on, figurines, you name it. I was about that life. Well, one day, my legit insane grandmother, my mother's mum, who was generally under the idea I was evil and demonic and wasn't ashamed to announce it, convinced my mum that all that unicorn stuff fell under the same satanic umbrella as Sailor Moon and Pokemon, that I didn't need the influence, and talked her into getting rid of all of it. This conversation took place before I even woke up that day. And I woke up to my mom telling me to get dressed because grandma was coming over to help with some much-needed cleaning, and explained what was happening. I, of course, broke down and begged her not to, but she basically waved me off, told me to save it, and get dressed. I did, and tried to hide a few things, and only one small plastic toy wasn't found, but I got dressed, and by then, my grandma had shown up. Everything was cut up, smashed, burned, and they made me do all of it as they searched my room with military precision. I had to destroy my clothes, burn books and posters, and smash any figurines, but all ended up in a literal dumpster fire. Of course, this hit me like a truck, and I was sobbing through the whole thing, and they me, saying I was upset because I was still in Satan's grasp. There even was a fight over the glow-in-the-dark stars when the glow-in-the-dark magical fantasy ones were being assessed as evil or not. The fantasy ones lost, and my dad came home while we fought about the stars, because I refused to budge, and Dad took one look at everything, said the stars stay, and ordered this whole ordeal over. Sadly, he was too late to save anything except the stars, but he was livid. Extra content, my dad was not about the cult life or ideas, but let some slide for a few reasons, but mostly because they'd pulled this type of schmidt while he was at work, and as the men of the house, cult rules said his word was law, and he weaponized the hell out of that when they do this. Otherwise, he was a very laid-back and loving father, and rarely got mad. So when he did, it was a big deal. So a week of switching between crying and disassociation on my end, and my dad's anger at my mom and grandma, my mom finally realized she'd done goofed on this one, and got me a few small unicorn things. We weren't rich, but she wanted to try and make it right somehow, to give me when she apologized profusely for what she'd done and allowed. All I did was look but not touch the items, then looked at her, shrugged apathetically as I was still messed up over it, and said, "I don't want these anymore." My mom started to cry, apologized again, which earned her another apathetic shrug, and I looked at her with the 1,000-yard stare and said, "It doesn't matter anymore because it's too late," and walked away to my room. My mom cried for a month, and would later try to get me back into unicorns, but it never worked. She still gets upset to this day, 30 years later, when it's brought up. Well, maybe don't listen to your mom that you know is insane, and we wouldn't be here, mother. Now, before you sound off at your absolute disgust in this mother's actions, there's an edit that I think the OP would like us to know. One thing I'd like to note, as it keeps coming up, is that I just found this sub today and this memory came to mind. While there is no excuse for what my mother was like, please do know that the mum I wrote about and the mum I have now are two different people. She's still a bit odd, but not abusive anymore, and we have a really good relationship now. I've got other stories to share and will, but please keep in mind that while my mother did her fair bit on her own, a lot of what was done to me was by the women in my family who my grandmother convinced I was evil and satanic and so on, which my mother never stood for and defended me for it. I have a full understanding of the trauma cycle and where it began, how and why, and I understand why my mother was the way she was. It does not make it okay at all in any Anyway, but as previously stated, she is no longer that person, nor do I blame or hold anything against her anymore. The past is the past, and her and I are different people. And while she still carries the guilt of what she did, she isn't that person anymore. And while I can recognize what issues arose in me from her actions, things are very different now. I finally feel like I have a mom, and I'm thankful to be healing and moving on from the past. Nah, your mom. So here's something interesting too. Your grandma needs to look up unicorns in Christian symbolism. But then again, she's too stupid and crazy to understand. And yeah, what? That's a thing. Unicorns are actually in the Bible. Look, here's the proof. Some people claim the Bible is a book of fairy tales because it mentions unicorns. However, unicorns in the Bible were real animals, not imaginary creatures. Oh, okay. Who needs science or proof? It was in the Bible, therefore it is real. I love this confident energy. The unicorns in the Bible were real because we said so. But okay, do you want to know the reason why Granny thinks OP was the embodiment of the devil? So okay, why was I so evil and demonic to her? Because I was the embodiment of my mother's sin. What sin? She married a full-blooded Native American man instead of a German-bred German man. And I was the demonic half-breed. As the Bible says, you can't marry outside of your race. It's stupid and crazy is absolutely correct, my friend.
Ooh, Cam Games was an Inquisitioner and a Nazi. What a combo!
Yeah, it's a rumor that no one talks about, but yeah. Pretty sure there were some past Nazi members as, ooh, did they push the white is right stuff. I remember being 16 and helping clean up after some big family dinner, and my grandma telling me to find a nice white man, as it'd be best for you and the family. I said I was also Native American, and she promptly replied, it was best to ignore that, for the family. Oh, and to never get fat, or I'll never find anyone who truly loves me. Yeah. Real treasure, that one. So a dark but valid response here. You know, Grandma, you should look into DNRs. You know, for the family. You think you'd love to be catcalled? Okay, sure. About 10 years ago, my friend and I, both 22 female at the time, joined a group of friends at a bar after we both got off work. The group had already been drinking, and we were all standing outside for a smoke. Our one friend, a T, 22 male, made an offhand comment about how women shouldn't be so upset when guys try to hit on them, and that he would love for a woman to be that aggressive towards him. A few people laughed. Some tried to reason. I was immediately furious. I called him out on it and bet him that by the end of the night, he would be begging me to quit. He quickly took me up on the offer, laughing that there was no way he would ever tell a woman to stop. So we shook hands and I started in on him. What I didn't expect was my female friend to join in on the subtle comments. We called him sweetheart, told him how his biceps looked good but better with no shirt on, etc. for the majority of the night. He initially found it hilarious and played along, but it started to wear on him. The other two guys tried to get him to call it quits and started hassling us for being creeps, but T kept saying it wasn't that bad, although the joke was getting old. Oh, look, I don't know about the rest of the male gender, but being called sweetheart, especially by someone who is either younger or the same age as me, you can shut your freaking mouth. I'm not a kid to you. What's the other one? Oh, darling, that's it. So there's words of endearment that just, I've heard them so many times from narcissistic people that they feel condescending the moment I hear them come out of someone's mouth. Now, by the end of the night, another female friend showed up to collect her drunk boyfriend, and we filled her in on what was happening. While we were across the street from the guys, suddenly, it became a barrage of catcalling from the three of us. We rejoined the group of guys a few minutes later when T called it quits because he started to feel like every woman he walked past was going to join in on what we were doing. The look of shock on those guys' faces when the three of us explained that that feeling is exactly how women feel will never leave me. Oh, plus, my friend dug at the other guys for not showing that same energy when one of us was being hassled. Ooh, now you have to block them from going anywhere until they give you their number and then call it while he's standing there to make sure it's good. Oh, that's the worst. I genuinely don't know how guys can do that without feeling embarrassed. Like, what a great start to a possible relationship. Hey, I already don't trust you, so I'm gonna test you right here, right now. But of course, we've got to always make sure we remember the second thing after that. When they refuse to give you their number, call them a freaking bitch and say you were just trying to be nice. Oh, don't forget to add that they aren't even that hot anyway. And let's be reminded here, these were three small women. He was uncomfortable just from the dialogue alone. Imagine also having that subtle understanding that if those three women wanted to, they could easily, single-handedly overpower him. Just makes it further unsurprising why, for the dating world, women are far attracted to people who make them safe than people who are dangerous and, adventurous. Oh, but it also turns out Opie did do something physical to them. So at one point, while he was still playing along, He went to seduce me by sensually putting my finger in his mouth to suck on it. Unfortunately, his drunken brain forgot that I have very long stiletto nails on, so he proceeded to immediately gag. After the laughter settled down from the group, I told him that I loved seeing a guy choke. There was so much discomfort from the men, you could cut it with a knife and serve it for dessert. I feel like that one was the turning point, and I still think we left him off easy. Clean up your mess? Sure. Now clean up mine. I have food-related sensory issues. Basically, unless it's on pizza, I can't have melted cheese without becoming nauseous. Cream of anything, cheesy sauces, mac and cheese, nachos, whatever, I can't eat it or I'll throw up. A few years ago, I was living in a program. Tia. One of the things that happened while I was there was weekly rotation of household chores sections. The weekend this particular incident happened, I was on kitchen, which involved washing up household dishes. At the time, our weekend staff lady, M, liked to make cheesy noodles, which I very obviously didn't eat. Unfortunately, that didn't stop her from making me clean up the pot she'd used, which still had a fair few pieces of spaghetti, as well as copious amounts of cold, congealed melted cheese in it. I tried to get her or someone else to clean it, especially because I didn't eat any of it, but M persisted. Well, fine. So I started washing it. The smell and texture of the cheese were still making me nauseous, so I asked for some latex gloves, which I thought might help mitigate the nausea. M begrudgingly got them for me, and I went back to attempting to clean the pot. The gloves didn't help enough, because I had to abandon the pot halfway through so I could run to the bathroom and throw up what I had made and eaten for lunch myself anyway. I didn't quite make it there in time. One of the other people ended up cleaning that pot up, and I was never asked to clean up M's cheesy noodles ever again. So someone says, hey, you should have puked on the floor and made whoever was on floor duty that day clean it. I'm glad they eventually saw reason, though. Oh, a little bit did actually get on the floor, which was carpeted. Vomiting on carpet? Plot twist. OP is a cat! But side note, wowee, today I learned that food-based sensory issues can actually get this bad. I mean, I knew sensory issues were a thing, but wow, this has completely changed my perspective on some friends I knew back in the day. If any of them ever watch this video, I sincerely apologize for judging you for being so upset and frustrated when someone didn't get you what you asked for. I can only imagine what this sort of experience is, considering I'm someone who is very comfortable playing something like Dead Space, like a gory horror game. So the idea of some blobs of cold cheese on the side of a pot being enough to make someone want to vomit? Wow. Bully had the tables turned on her. So back in school, I, 19 male, got bullied relentlessly every day. Nothing physical, besides a few balls thrown at me in gym, but it was pretty bad. The two main perpetrators were a guy, who is irrelevant here, and a girl, who is the main focus of this story. This girl, we'll call her Bich McGee for the sake of protecting those who don't deserve it. This takes place in, maybe 6th grade. We were in class, waiting for the teacher to arrive. Bich McGee was talking her usual schmidt towards me, just trying her best to make me feel worse than the muddy linoleum of the school floors. Now, something about 13-year-old me is that I loved revenge stories. I'm sure everyone who was bullied can relate to that. Daydreaming about getting revenge on your abusers so often your grades start dropping because you're depressed to hell, and not paying attention in class because you're so busy imagining your bullies getting a taste of their own medicine, or worse. I frequented corners of the internet where clever comebacks and petty revenge stories were everywhere. Clever is used loosely because I remember we were all a bunch of depressed, edgy 12 to 15-year-olds with unrestricted internet access back in 2016. But I digress. Bich McGee is being her usual self, with me only a few feet away from her. Eventually, I get fed up, and when she takes a break from her bullshit to laugh, I stare at her, and in my most fed-up voice my anxious little self could muster in a class of 30 kids, I say, Bich McGee, you're so fake even Barbie is jealous of you. Class erupts. Everyone, including the kids laughing with her, are oohing and now laughing at her. She is stunned into silence for a few sweet seconds, and I feel immense pride within myself that I had finally gotten her on my level. Of course, it didn't last long before she stutters out something lame that leaves everyone going, what the frick does that mean? And the teacher walks in. Now, this didn't stop her from bullying me until the day I left that school, but I have been relishing in that small victory ever since. She's still a bitch to this day, by the way. Yeah, let me guess, she's a registered nurse now. Now, this one deals with sexual harassment, but oh, buddy, it is so satisfying how they're defeated. So when I was around 12, a boy a few years older than me took a liking to me. In the stupid 90s way of boys will be boys. I'd see him when I was walking to and from school when we were with our separate friends. He was around 15, big group of boys, egging each other on, liked to ask, demand, and shout for intimate favors whilst following us through the park near our houses. Please remember, I was 12. He was vile and disgusting. After a few weeks, he started getting closer, trying to grope my friends and I went home crying and told my mom. Now, my mom was crazy, not always in a good way. First, she wanted to go find him herself, but I didn't want her to go to prison. She also demanded we fight, whether we wanted to or not. So she told me what to do. The next time, he stated,
"Hey, suck my dick. Come on. Suck it. Suck it."
"Okay, present it." Silence from him. His friends all started laughing, egging him on, telling him to get it out. Me telling him to pull it out. Go on then. And he freaking did. My friend and I pointed and laughed, and I said, "Oh, sorry, I choke on small bones." He called me a freaking bitch pretty much every time he saw me again for the rest of school, but he never asked me to suck it again. My mom had some terrible qualities, but she had some pretty good comebacks. Just remembered this one and wanted to share. Yeah, it doesn't exactly stop their disgusting behavior, but definitely minimizes it, which sometimes is the best you can do. Plus, as the OP says anyway, being called a bitch was a hell of a lot easier to laugh at. Plus, I mostly just did the little and laughed, so it backfired on him anyway. Everyone was pretty scared of my mom. She was kind of the original rabid mama bear. Took it far a lot of the time, but nobody messed with her kids. This is by far the best title I've ever read. Gave my transphobic mother boob envy. Okay, so this happened a little over a year and a half ago, but honestly, it was such a good moment of schadenfreude that I, 32 male to female, can't help but snicker at the memory. So, around the aforementioned time, I'd just come out to my family after having been secretly on HRT for just over a year. I knew I wouldn't be able to hide the changes soon, and I wanted to know where I stood with them before making the decision to flee to the East Coast and get out ahead of all the transphobic legislation cropping up in the state. Honestly, I should have seen their reaction coming. They're conservative, self-described libertarian, and to make the facts, they're Protestant and Southern Baptist, their entire personalities. But I guess I'm just a hopeless optimist. Long story short, it didn't go well, and I'm on thin ice with my family just for being a trans woman. My mother at least tries for a while, uses gender-neutral pronouns for me for like a week before she
Just can't do it anymore.
because it
Isn't who you are.
to her. Anyway, while I quietly prepare my egress from the Bible Belt, I keep up the illusion of civility with them and meet Mum for lunch on Wednesdays. During these meetings, she badgers me with transphobic rhetoric and factually incorrect statements she's obviously parroting from far-right media, and makes snide remarks that alternate between bigotry, religious holier-than-thou nonsense, or attempts to make me renege on my transition. Stuff like, "You have all the beautiful parts of a man that the right woman will love one day." Basically reducing me to a PP with legs whose sole purpose is breeding grandkids for her. Yes, like what?
Sweetheart, don't change. You've got such a good dick.
What kind of mother would say that?
Please, my child, don't you understand that your genitalia is all that makes you valid in this world?
Mom, please stop talking about my willy. One of these days, as we're leaving, my mother decides to take one last parting shot at me before we go our separate ways for the week.
Oh, and by the way, if you're really serious about this, you're going to need to start wearing a bra.
Smirk on my lips. I can't help but tell her, "I'm already wearing a bra, Mom." She stops dead in her tracks, stared slack-jawed at me for a good 30 seconds before fuming.
See, that's not fair. It's completely unfair that my son has bigger breasts than me.
I rode that high for a good couple of weeks at most, and thinking about it still makes me smile. Ended up having to flee to the East Coast, and I'm currently no contact with my folks. Their bigotry later came to a head and included both disowning me and threats of physical violence. But yeah, that's the story of how I got one over on my transphobic mother. Also, yes, I was already wearing a bra at the time, and it was a compression sports bra because I was still stealth, due to still living in the southern Midwest when this happened. And again, I was only a year into HRT by then, so my baboo-boos hadn't even reached their final form. It normally takes 10 years for breast tissue to stop growing in teenage cis girls, so the timeline is similar for trans women going through puberty to electric boogaloo. Well, friends, I might end things there. Thank you for watching. Hope you had a good time. Hope you're enjoying your tea today. And if you didn't, I hope you at least enjoyed the tea that was in the video today specifically. Anyway, it'll be good. Love your face, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.